How was I able to make it through being rejected so young? I didn't. I didn't make it through.
Hey champions, allow me to introduce to you author Marcia Ali and her Why My Mom story entitled Finding Strength in Rejection. Big word, rejection. So in her story, Marsha deals with her mom and dad splitting, having a divorce, and her realizing that she struggled a lot growing up through her childhood, teenage years, and even now with rejection, and how she was able to discover where her real strength lies. I hope you guys can find your strength as well.
My name is Marcia Ali. I am the CEO and founder of TOFT, which stands for Time Out for Teens, and I am also the founder of POP, Parenting on Purpose. My Why My Mom story is about my relationship with my mom and how rejection has spilled over throughout my life. My journey started when my parents separated when I was 12 years old, and it wasn't until I was a full-grown adult that I realized that I was dealing with rejection. Not that I feel as though she intentionally did it, but I don't think anyone was aware of how I was feeling because I wasn't aware of it until later on. I realized that I had an issue with rejection a couple of years ago. I was going through some other traumatic things in my life, but the feelings and the anxiety all resembled the same pattern. So I sought out a therapist after praying, because as believers, we want to pray and fast and everything go away. But I'm here to say today that Jesus and a good therapist will help you get to the root of what's really going on. When you ask, does my mom acknowledge her part in the rejection? I'm going to say no, not to any fault of hers, because I don't believe she knew what I was feeling or what was being reflected towards me. When her and my dad separated, she went into single mom mode and she did what she knew. And in therapy, getting to the root of what was going on, I looked at the dynamics of my family as a whole. Whenever something happens, everybody just picks up the pieces and keep on moving like it didn't happen. Nobody wants to acknowledge that this has happened, this is real, and we're going to deal with it. That's just not the pattern. How was I able to make it through being rejected so young? I didn't. I didn't make it through. Everything that I felt as though I was lacking, and notice I say everything that I felt, because I didn't verbalize it, because I didn't know how to verbalize it, it wasn't something that was done. I just started looking for love in all the wrong places. I started trying to fill those voids with external things and not from within. So that had been my coping mechanism for decades. I'm going to fill this void by any means necessary. If you don't want to do it, it's going to get done. But that's not the way it should have been handled. How did rejection affect me in my adulthood? I began to feel like I failed at everything, because people look at rejection as only with humans. Rejection can come from applying for a job that you know you qualify for and you don't get it. Rejected. You can apply for a credit card and you got a good score and they just not going to give it to you. Rejected. You can be in a relationship, a marriage, or with another family member, and they just flip the script for no reason. rejected. You can be friends with people for years, and all of a sudden, something just flips the table over and they don't want to deal with you no more. Rejected. You know, for me, I went to nursing school in 2000. And the first time I took my boards, I failed it. I felt rejected. I took it again. I failed it. I felt rejected. The third time I took it, I passed it. But that was a 20-year stretch. And I'm like, nobody's going to hire me being out of school 20 years. But to God be the glory. I have a nursing license now. But I know what it feels like to feel that rejection on different levels, not just in relationships, just in life in general. And when that pattern, when that table of rejection is set, you'll begin to think that everybody's rejecting you. And the biggest thing that happens out of that, you become a people pleaser. And you begin to pour. And next thing you know, you're so empty and depleted, you don't have anything. Because all you want to do is be accepted. So that's part of why I feel people sit in it so long. No, I've dealt with some things this year that kind of forced me out of feeling rejected. I just had to just acknowledge it through prayer, through therapy, and just pick up the pieces and move on with my life, because I had been dealing with it so long. I'll go back a few decades. I had 4 miscarriages before I had my first child. And as a woman and as a wife, I felt incompetent because all my friends were having babies. Everybody was doing it. And every time I got pregnant, I would go a couple of more months, have a miscarriage, have a couple of more months, and have a miscarriage. And when I did have my first daughter, she was stillborn. So I felt incompetent as a woman, because, you know, it's like, what's wrong with you? Why you can't have a baby? And I started rationalizing all these different things that I was doing to my body that maybe I couldn't carry. So I got pregnant again, and I had a son, and he lived 3 months, and then he passed away. And I felt deflated again. I was like, you know, my marriage is failing, rejection. My son has died, rejection. So all of that was internalized because I just kept going. This happened, you know, we gonna pray, we gonna get through it. And then when I had my next son, he was a preemie. And I felt deflated. But I knew that he was gonna make it, and he did. And he's 32 today. But through all of that, I just kept feeling like a failure. And feeling like a failure is another form of feeling rejected from life. You feel like your purpose is being tainted. You know, that you're incompetent in everything you do. You fail in tests, you lose a job, you can't have a baby, all these things that, you know, you're supposed to be able to do. The advice that I would give a parent so that they don't pass down the rejection to their seed is to first get honest with yourself. It's okay to say you're not okay. It's okay, even as a parent, to pull back. It does take a village to raise a child. And there's nothing wrong with asking for help. It doesn't mean that you're less than. It doesn't mean that you're incompetent. But if you don't want to see a duplicate of yourself, then somebody has to say, hey, I need some help. I'm not okay. Let me reach out to whoever I need to reach out to. And don't make everything spiritual, because you can't pray everything away. You can't pray little Johnny away from smoking weed when you know half your family is on drugs. You can't always pray away alcohol when you know you come from a lineage of alcoholics. You can't pray away promiscuity when you know that it didn't start with you. You have to look at it for what it is and stop acting like it's not there. Be honest with your kids. Every one of my kids will tell you, we have a standard, and it's called tell the truth. If you don't want to know the answer, don't ask me, because you're going to get the truth. And that's the way it has always been, because I'm trying to think of how it used to be put to me. Something to the effect, not children are to be seen and not heard, or what happens in this house stays in this house. That's poison. Because there are kids that are being molested. There are kids that are being molested that are afraid to speak out because they feel like you're not going to believe them. When you already know they ain't the first generation that been fondled. This been going on for years and nobody wants to say anything. So they begin to believe that that's right. We live in a society now where children, I'm not talking about teenagers, children are taking their life based on not being able to speak. Kids now are not communicators because we live in a nation of technology where all they do is talk to a keyboard. They're sending text to another relative in the same house. And when you go to ask them a question, you wondering why they saying what? Because they don't know how to talk to nobody. Because they're not being taught how to communicate. So the biggest thing I would tell a parent is take the time to talk to your child. I don't care if you take 5 minutes and all y'all do is stare at each other. When I go out with my kids or my grandkids, all the phones go in the middle of the table. They do it kicking and screaming, but we gonna have some kind of conversation. Or we just gonna look at each other. You can do it, but you gotta teach communication. It has to be done.
I'll be your hero. I'll be your strength when you need it most. You don't have to be alone. I'll be there, keep holding on. Don't have to worry, don't be scared. Love has never failed you yet. I'll be your hero.
Mom, I love you. I know that you love me. I know that you're proud of me. I know that you are a cheerleader for me, and you've always been a cheerleader for me. I also recognize that we're very different, and it's okay for us to be different. It's okay for us to agree, to disagree on things. You know, you faith your way through things. I deal with stuff, and that's okay. But because of everything that I've been through, including you being my mom, I know that I have drawn strength from you. And you are one of the reasons why I am the woman that I am today. And I thank you for that.
I'll be your hero.